I'm Chloe, 29 years old, and I spent 8 months and $27,000 planning a luxury trip to France for my parents' 40th anniversary. First-class flights, 5-star hotels, private tours. But 1 month before departure, my dad called a family meeting. Sitting in our living room, he said, "We think it's best if your brother's fiancée takes your place." My heart stopped, until I realized this wasn't just betrayal, it was a setup. And this time, I will not stay silent. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from. And truly, thank you for being here. Let me back up and give you some context about my family. I work as a marketing director for a Fortune 500 company in Seattle. I've always been what you'd call the successful one in the family, full scholarship to Stanford, 6-figure salary, penthouse apartment downtown. You'd think that would earn me some respect, right? Wrong. My brother Marcus is 32, still lives with our parents in Portland, Oregon, works construction when he feels like it, and has been divorced once. He's got an 8-year-old daughter named Emma, who's honestly the only family member who treats me like I matter. But somehow, Marcus has always been the golden child, the one who needed protecting, the one whose feelings mattered most. Our dad, Richard, is a retired high school principal who ruled our house like his classroom, strict, no nonsense, and always right. Our mom, Susan, used to be a librarian, and she's got this gentle personality that unfortunately makes her easy to manipulate, if you know which buttons to push. Growing up, I learned early that if I wanted attention, I had to earn it. Good grades, scholarships, achievements, those got me a pat on the head and a "we're proud of you, honey." But if Marcus so much as stubbed his toe, the entire family would rally around him like he was dying. It's been like that my whole life. Last year, everything changed. Dad had a mild heart attack. Nothing serious, but enough to put him in the hospital for a few days. I flew down from Seattle immediately, and seeing him lying in that hospital bed with all those wires, I realized something. My parents were getting old. They'd spent 40 years working, raising kids, and never really seeing the world beyond Oregon. Their 40th anniversary was coming up in the spring, and I wanted to do something special. Not just dinner at Red Lobster or a weekend in Seaside. Something they'd never forget. Something that would show them how much I appreciated everything they'd done for me, even if they didn't always show it the way I needed. That's when I came up with the idea for France. See, my parents had never traveled internationally. Dad always said it was too expensive and complicated, and Mom would occasionally look at travel magazines and sigh, but never push the issue. I wanted to give them something magical, first-class flights, luxury hotels, private tours, the whole experience. I spent my lunch breaks researching itineraries. I wanted everything to be perfect. 10 days in France, Paris with a stay at the Hotel Georges V, day trips to the chateau in the Loire Valley, time in Provence during lavender season, private wine tastings, Michelin-starred restaurants, a Seine River cruise at sunset. I even planned to include Marcus and Emma so it would be a 3-generation family memory. The total came to just over $27,000 for all 5 of us. It would take my entire annual bonus plus a significant chunk of my savings, but I decided it was worth it. I took on extra freelance projects, sold my BMW and bought a used Honda, canceled my own vacation to Bali. Every payment, every booking confirmation, I pictured my parents' faces when they saw the Eiffel Tower for the first time. I worked with a high-end travel agency to book everything. First-class flights on Air France, ocean view suites, private guided tours of Versailles, VIP access to the Louvre. I even arranged for a private cooking class with a French chef and a sunset picnic in the lavender fields of Provence. For 8 months, I planned and saved and sacrificed. I bought travel guides and learned basic French phrases so I could help them navigate. I researched the best restaurants, the most photogenic spots, the experiences they'd treasure forever. This wasn't just a vacation, it was my love letter to them. When everything was finally booked and paid for, I decided to surprise them with the announcement during our monthly family dinner. I had custom invitation cards made with gold embossing and photos of all the places we'd visit. I placed them next to their dessert plates and waited. Mom opened hers first. Her hands started shaking as she read the details. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes, completely speechless. "Is this real?" she finally whispered. I nodded, grinning. "Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad." Dad studied his invitation like he was looking for fine print. Chloe, this must have cost a fortune. Don't worry about that, I said. It's my gift to you both. You deserve it. Marcus picked up his invitation with wide eyes. First-class flights? The Hotel George V? Are you serious right now? Completely serious. We leave in 4 months, right around your anniversary week. I've already cleared the time off work and talked to your boss about getting you the days off. Mom got up and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Thank you, sweetheart. This is the most wonderful gift anyone's ever given us. Even Dad seemed moved, though he expressed it in his typical reserved way. This is very generous, Chloe. Thank you. For a moment, everything was perfect. I felt like I finally mattered to them, like all my success and hard work had earned me a place at the family table as something more than just the ATM. Then the doorbell rang. Mom went to answer it and came back with Marcus's girlfriend Brittany in tow. Apparently, she decided to surprise Marcus by showing up for dessert, though I suspected he'd texted her about dinner earlier. Hope you don't mind me crashing your family time, she said, with this smile that seemed a little too practiced. Marcus mentioned your mom's famous apple pie, and I just had to try it. Now let me tell you about Brittany Thompson, 26 years old, blonde, conventionally pretty in that Instagram influencer way. She called herself a yoga instructor and spiritual wellness coach, though I'd never seen any actual credentials. She had about 50,000 followers who hung on her every word about crystals and cleansing and finding your authentic self. She'd been dating Marcus for exactly 6 months, and in that time, she'd somehow managed to insert herself into every family gathering. She called my parents Dad Richard and Mama Susan from day one, which should have been red flag number 1. She brought her yoga mat everywhere and was constantly talking about energy and vibrations and the universe sending her signs. As she sat down next to Marcus, she noticed the invitation cards on the table. What's this? Are we celebrating something special? Marcus immediately launched into an excited explanation of the France trip, detailing every luxury element I'd planned. I watched Brittany's face transform as he spoke. Her eyes got wider, and this smile spread across her face. Not a happy smile, but something calculating. France? Oh my God, that sounds incredible, she exclaimed, looking at Marcus's invitation like she was memorizing every detail. I've always dreamed of going there. All those Instagram travel bloggers are always posting from Paris, and the shopping there is supposed to be amazing. Throughout dessert, she peppered me with questions. How long would we be staying? Which parts of France would we visit? Would there be time for shopping? Had I planned any special experiences? With each answer, her expression grew more intense, this mixture of longing and scheming that made my stomach turn. When it was time for me to leave, Brittany gave me this uncomfortably tight hug. You're so generous to do this for your family, Chloe. Marcus is so lucky to have such a caring sister. Something in her tone felt off, but I smiled politely and left. Driving home that night, I couldn't shake this uneasy feeling. Looking back now, I should have trusted that instinct. It was the first warning sign of what was coming. 6 weeks before our scheduled departure, Marcus called with news. He and Brittany had gotten engaged during a weekend trip to the Oregon coast. He'd proposed with a diamond ring that I later learned was purchased with money he'd borrowed from our parents. That's wonderful, Marcus, I said, trying to sound enthusiastic despite my doubts about their relationship. I'm happy for you. Thanks, sis. Brittany's already talking about wedding venues and dresses. You know how women get about planning. I let that comment slide and asked how our parents had reacted. They're over the moon, he said. Mom cried happy tears, and Dad actually hugged me. Can you believe it? They're having us over for dinner this Sunday to celebrate. You'll come, right? I agreed, though I had serious reservations about this engagement. On one hand, I wanted Marcus to be happy. On the other hand, everything about Brittany screamed opportunist to me. Sunday arrived, and I drove down to Portland with a nice bottle of champagne as an engagement gift. When I got to the house, it was full celebration mode. Mom had cooked Marcus's favorite meal, Dad had bought flowers, and Marcus and Brittany were holding court in the living room like visiting royalty. Chloe, Brittany squealed when she saw me, jumping up to hug me. I'm so glad you could make it. Look at my ring, isn't it gorgeous? Marcus did so well. I admired the ring politely, noting that it was at least 2 carats and probably cost more than Marcus made in 3 months. My suspicions about our parents' financial involvement were basically confirmed when I noticed Mom wearing costume jewelry instead of her usual gold pieces. During dinner, the conversation inevitably turned to the France trip, which was now just 6 weeks away. Brittany leaned forward eagerly as Mom discussed what clothes she was planning to pack. "I've been doing so much research about French fashion," Brittany interjected. "For the countryside, we'll want light layers because it can get chilly in the evening. And for those fancy dinners you planned, we should definitely dress up. I was thinking of wearing my new red dress, the one with the gold accents that would look amazing in photos." Her casual use of "we" hit me like a slap. I glanced at Marcus, who was suddenly very interested in his mashed potatoes. Dad was nodding along like this was perfectly normal. I cleared my throat. "Brittany, I'm not sure Marcus explained properly, but this trip is specifically for my parents' anniversary. The reservations are for 5 people: Mom, Dad, Marcus, Emma, and me." The table went dead silent. Brittany's smile froze on her face, though her eyes narrowed just slightly. Dad set down his fork with that deliberate motion I remembered from childhood. The warning sign that meant I was about to get lectured. "Chloe," he said slowly, "now that Marcus and Brittany are engaged, don't you think it would be appropriate to include her in our family celebration?" My stomach dropped. "Dad, I would love to include Brittany, but everything has been planned and paid for with 5 specific people in mind. All the hotel reservations, the private tours, the restaurant bookings. They're arranged for our group size. Adding another person would require changing everything." "Surely you could make some adjustments," Dad pressed. "Brittany is going to be part of our family now," Mom spoke up tentatively. "The trip is Chloe's gift to us, Robert. She's put so much thought and money into planning it." I shot her a grateful look, but Dad waved her comment away. "Chloe has a successful career. I'm sure the additional cost wouldn't be a significant burden." Marcus finally looked up from his plate. "Brittany doesn't even have a passport yet, but we're expediting it. This would be such an amazing first international experience for her." Brittany reached over and squeezed Dad's hand. "I would never want to impose, Dad Richard. It's just that Marcus has told me so much about this trip, and it sounds like such a special family bonding time. I'd love to be included, but I completely understand if it's not possible." Her tone was sweet as honey, but her expression told a different story. I took a deep breath. The issue isn't just cost, though that's certainly a factor. The hotel suites I booked are configured for specific numbers of guests. The private tours have set group sizes. The first-class airfare alone would be over $8,000 at this point, and that's if we can even get seats on the same flights. "So you're saying no?" Dad's voice had that edge I knew too well. "I'm saying it would be extremely difficult and expensive to change everything at this late date. Maybe Brittany and Marcus could plan their own honeymoon trip to France after the wedding. I'd be happy to share all my research." "That's generous," Brittany said with a tight smile, "but it wouldn't be the same as experiencing it together as a family for such a milestone occasion." Dad nodded firmly. Family should be together for important celebrations. The irony of my father suddenly emphasizing family togetherness wasn't lost on me, but this wasn't the time for that fight. "Let me look into what options might be available," I said, though I had no intention of spending thousands more to accommodate someone I was increasingly certain was using my family. The rest of dinner was tense. When I got ready to leave, Dad walked me to the door. "Chloe, I hope you'll make the right decision about this," he said, his tone making it clear what he considered the right decision to be. "I'll see what I can do, Dad." Driving back to Seattle, I had this sinking feeling that this was far from over. I was right. It was just the beginning. 1 month before our France departure, Dad called and asked me to come down to Portland. "We need to discuss the trip situation," he said, his voice unusually careful. "Can you come by around 6 tonight?" I agreed, though every instinct told me this conversation was going to be bad. I hadn't heard much about the trip lately, which was suspicious given how excited everyone had been initially. My attempts to confirm final details with my parents had been met with vague responses and subject changes. When I arrived that evening, the atmosphere in the house felt wrong immediately. Mom opened the door but couldn't quite meet my eyes. In the living room, Dad sat in his usual chair, looking like he was about to deliver bad news. Marcus was on the couch, and next to him, looking far too comfortable for someone who should have been a guest, sat Brittany. Chloe, have a seat, Dad said, gesturing to the chair across from him. The setup felt like a tribunal. What's going on? I asked, though I already knew this wasn't going to be good. Dad cleared his throat. We've been doing a lot of thinking about the France trip, and we've come to a decision. The use of we didn't escape my notice. This was supposed to be my gift to them. Your mother and I believe that since Brittany is joining our family, this anniversary trip would be the perfect opportunity for all of us to bond and create memories together. I nodded slowly. As I mentioned before, adding another person would be complicated and expensive, but if you all feel strongly about it, I can look into the costs and see what changes would need to be made. That's not exactly what we had in mind, Dad continued, looking uncomfortable for the first time. Given the limitations you mentioned about the reservations being for 5 people, we think the most practical solution would be for Brittany to take your place on the trip. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. I'm sorry, what? It makes the most sense, he continued, his voice taking on that authoritative tone that meant no arguments would be tolerated. You've traveled internationally before. Brittany never has. This would be a once-in-a-lifetime experience for her, whereas for you, it would just be another business trip. I felt like all the oxygen had been sucked from the room. Mom was staring at her lap, twisting her wedding ring. Marcus looked somewhat ashamed but not enough to speak up. Brittany sat there with this slight smile that she was trying to hide, pure triumph. Dad, I finally managed, my voice barely audible. I paid for this entire trip. I planned every single detail. This was my gift to you and Mom. And we appreciate that, he replied quickly. But once a gift is given, it belongs to the recipient. Your mother and I want to share this experience with our son and his fiancée. The casual cruelty of that statement left me speechless. I looked at Mom, hoping for support, but she remained silent. Brittany deserves this opportunity more than you do, Dad added, delivering the killing blow. She's about to become part of this family. This trip would mean everything to her. I felt tears threatening but refused to let them fall. I've been planning this for 8 months. I worked extra jobs, sold my car, gave up my own vacation plans. I've spent $27,000 to create this experience for our family. And we'll reimburse you for your portion, Dad said dismissively, like that solved everything. Marcus calculated that your share would be around $6,000. We can write you a check right now, I laughed bitterly. $6,000. Dad, the first-class flights alone cost more than that per person. Never mind the hotels, the private tours, all the special experiences I arranged. Marcus finally spoke up. Come on, Chloe. Don't be selfish about this. Family helps family. You know Brittany and I can't afford a trip like this. You make good money and can go to France anytime you want. Selfish, I repeated, my voice rising. I spent my own money I worked 60-hour weeks to earn, to give our parents a special anniversary gift. How exactly does that make me selfish? It's selfish to deny Brittany this opportunity just because you want to go too, Marcus shot back. You always have to be the center of attention, don't you? Always showing off how successful you are. That was it. I'd reached my breaking point. You know what? Fine, Brittany can have my spot. But I want to be very clear about something. When this trip inevitably goes sideways, when she shows her true colors, don't come crying to me. I stood up to leave, but Brittany's voice stopped me. Chloe, wait. Her tone was suddenly different, sweet, but with an edge. I just want you to know how grateful I am. This is literally a dream come true. I promise I'll take lots of photos to share with you. The fake sincerity in her voice made my skin crawl. I walked out without another word. Driving back to Seattle that night, I felt hollow. Not just disappointed or hurt, but completely empty. My own family had chosen a stranger over me. They'd taken the most generous gift I'd ever given and used it to reward someone who'd been in their lives for 6 months. But here's the thing, that hollow feeling, it didn't last long. Because it got replaced by something much more productive, suspicion. Something about this whole situation felt off. Brittany's behavior, the timing of the engagement, the way she'd manipulated the conversation about the trip. My instincts were screaming that there was more to this story. So I decided to do something I'd never done before. I decided to investigate Brittany Thompson. It started innocently enough. I was lying in bed unable to sleep, so I pulled up her Instagram. I'd looked at it before, but this time I really studied it. Her posts about being from small-town Montana didn't match the luxury lifestyle photos from her teenage years. Her claims about being a certified yoga instructor seemed questionable. I couldn't find any legitimate certifications listed anywhere. Then I noticed something weird. She'd changed her username multiple times over the past few years, and there were gaps in her posting history that didn't make sense. I started digging deeper. I found old Facebook profiles under slightly different names. I found a LinkedIn that listed completely different job experience than what she'd told my family. The more I looked, the more inconsistencies I found. That's when I decided to get serious about this investigation. I created a fake Instagram account and started reaching out to people who'd been tagged in Brittany's wellness posts. I pretended to be interested in hiring her as a coach and asked for references from past clients. The responses I got were illuminating. One woman wrote back, "Girl, run. Brittany took my money for a 3-month program and disappeared after 2 weeks. I had to dispute the charges with my credit card company." Another said, "She owes me $800 for a wellness retreat that never happened. I've been trying to reach her for months." A third person was more direct. "Brittany Thompson is a scammer. She targets women with money and promises them life-changing experiences, then vanishes with their cash." My hands were shaking as I read these messages. This wasn't just someone with bad business practices. This was a pattern of deliberate fraud. But I needed more than anonymous Instagram complaints. I needed real evidence. That's when I decided to call Ashley Morrison, a name that had come up in several of the messages as Brittany's former best friend and business partner. It took some digging to find her contact information, but I finally tracked down her number. Ashley was reluctant to talk at first. "I don't know who you are or why you're asking about Brittany," she said, when I called. "She's engaged to my brother," I explained. "I'm concerned about her intentions toward my family." There was a long pause. "Can you meet me somewhere public? There are things you need to know." We met at a coffee shop in downtown Portland the next day. Ashley was a pretty brunette about Brittany's age. But where Brittany had this polished, Instagram-perfect appearance, Ashley looked tired and stressed. "I'm only doing this because I wish someone had warned me," Ashley said as we sat down. "Brittany has a pattern. She targets men with money or families with resources. She's very good at playing the sweet, spiritual girl who just wants to belong." She pulled out her phone and showed me photos. This was 3 years ago. Brittany convinced me to go into business with her, a wellness retreat company. She said she had all these connections and experience. I invested my entire savings, about $15,000. The photos showed Ashley and Brittany at what looked like a beautiful retreat center, surrounded by yoga mats and smiling participants. "What happened?" I asked. "She disappeared with all the money." Turns out she'd been running the same scam on 2 other business partners at the same time. The retreat center, the participants, even some of the photos, all fake. She'd hired actors and rented the space just for the photo shoot. My blood went cold. "Did you report her to the police?" I tried, but it's complicated when it's a business partnership. She was careful about how she structured things legally. I eventually had to write it off as a learning experience. Ashley leaned forward. But here's what really scared me. After I started asking questions about the missing money, I found out that Brittany isn't even her real name. Her legal name is Bethany Torres. She's been engaged 3 times in the past 5 years, always to men with significant financial resources. She showed me more photos on her phone. Brittany with different men, different engagement rings, different last names on social media. She changes her name and her story depending on what she thinks will appeal to her target. With your brother, she became the spiritual yoga girl, because that's what he was looking for after his divorce. I felt sick. What happened to the other men she was engaged to? From what I could piece together, she usually gets what she can from them financially, then disappears when they start asking too many questions, or when she finds a better target. Ashley looked at me seriously. "Your brother is in real danger, not just financially, but emotionally. Brittany is very good at making men feel like they need to protect and provide for her. She'll drain him of everything he has, then move on to the next victim." I thanked Ashley and left the coffee shop with my head spinning. But I needed more than just Ashley's word if I was going to convince my family. I needed concrete proof. That's when I made the decision that probably saved my brother's life, financially speaking, anyway. I hired a private investigator. Best $2,000 I ever spent. The PI, a woman named Carol Martinez, came back to me 3 days later with a file that was thicker than a phone book. And what was in that file made everything Ashley had told me look like child's play. Your brother's fiancée has quite a history, Carol said as she slid the folder across my desk. Real name Bethany Maria Torres, age 26. She's currently facing 3 civil lawsuits for fraud, has defaulted on over $40,000 in personal loans, and has been engaged 4 times since 2019. She opened the folder and showed me documentation, court filings, credit reports, marriage license applications that were never completed. Here's what's really interesting, Carol continued. 2 weeks ago, your brother co-signed for a $15,000 personal loan that she took out ostensibly for business expansion. According to the paperwork, the money was supposed to go toward opening a yoga studio. She handed me a copy of the loan documents. Marcus's signature was right there in black and white. Except there's no yoga studio, Carol said. The money was transferred to an account in her name and then immediately moved to another account that we can't trace. It's likely offshore. I stared at the papers, feeling nauseated. Does Marcus know about this? Based on the application, he was told it was for $5,000, not $15,000. The paperwork was altered after he signed it. Carol kept going. There's more. She's convinced your parents to loan her $3,000 for a family emergency that doesn't exist. She told them her grandmother in Montana was sick and needed surgery. Her grandmother died in 2018. I have the death certificate. I sat back in my chair, overwhelmed. This wasn't just manipulation. This was criminal fraud. What's her endgame? I asked. Carol shrugged. Based on her pattern, she'll continue extracting money from your family until she either gets caught or finds a more lucrative target. The France trip is probably her exit strategy. Take a luxury vacation on your dime, then disappear. I looked through more of the documentation. Photos of Brittany with other men, other families, always playing the same role, the sweet damaged girl who just needed love and support. There's one more thing, Carol said. She's already planning to extend the France trip. She's been researching trains to other parts of Europe and luxury hotels in Switzerland and Italy. My guess is she's planning to leave your brother there and continue traveling on whatever money she can access. That was the final straw. I had everything I needed. It was time to confront my family with the truth. I drove down to Portland that weekend with the entire file. I called Marcus first and asked him to meet me at our parents' house. I told him it was important family business. When I arrived, everyone was there except Brittany. Perfect. I need to show you all something, I said, placing the file on the coffee table. It's about Brittany. Marcus immediately got defensive. Chloe, if this is about the France trip, it's not about the trip, I cut him off. It's about the fact that your fiancé is a con artist who's been defrauding our entire family. I opened the file and started laying out the evidence. The court documents, the loan paperwork, the proof that her grandmother was dead, the photos with other men. Marcus's face went through a series of changes as I explained everything. Disbelief, confusion, then slowly, horrible understanding. This can't be right, he said, picking up the loan documents. She said it was $5,000 for the yoga studio. Read the fine print, I said gently. She had you sign for $15,000 and the money didn't go to any business. It went straight into her personal account. Mom was staring at the photos of Brittany with other men. She told us she'd never been in a serious relationship before. 4 engagements in 5 years, I said. Always to men with money or families with resources she could exploit. Dad was quiet, studying the court documents. Finally, he looked up at me. How did you find all this? I hired a private investigator. Something about her felt wrong from the beginning, and when you all decided to give her my spot on the trip, I knew I had to find out who she really was. Marcus put his head in his hands. God, I'm such an idiot. She was so convincing. She made me feel like I was finally good enough for someone. Like I could be the man she needed me to be. My heart broke for him. Marcus, this isn't your fault. She's a professional. This is what she does for a living. The money, he said suddenly. She's been asking me to put her name on my checking account for when we're married. I was planning to do it next week. Don't, I said firmly. Don't give her access to anything else. Mom spoke up quietly. She asked us for another $2,000 last week. Said her car needed major repairs. Her car is fine, I said. It's all part of the pattern. She asked for small amounts that seem reasonable until you add them all up. Dad was still studying the documents. What do we do now? We confront her, I said. Together. But we need to be smart about it. If she realizes we know everything, she might try to disappear with whatever money she can access. Marcus looked up at me with tears in his eyes. Chloe, I'm so sorry. About the trip, about not believing you, about everything. You were trying to protect us, and I called you selfish. We all owe you an apology, Dad said quietly. We let an outsider manipulate us into turning against our own daughter. It was the first time in my life I'd ever heard my father apologize for anything. It should have felt like a victory, but mostly, I just felt sad for what we'd all lost. The important thing now is stopping her before she can hurt Marcus anymore, I said. We decided to set up a meeting with Brittany under the pretense of discussing final details for the France trip. Marcus would tell her that we wanted to go over the itinerary together as a family. The meeting was set for the next evening at my parents' house. I spent that day going over the plan with everyone. We would present the evidence calmly and give her a chance to explain, though I doubted there was any explanation that would make sense. When Brittany arrived the next evening, she was in full performance mode. Flowing dress, crystal jewelry, that serene smile she always wore when she was working an angle. This is so exciting, she said, hugging everyone in turn. I've been doing meditation and journaling about our trip, and I just know it's going to be transformative for all of us. We all sat down in the living room, the same setup where they'd told me I was being replaced. But this time, I was holding all the cards. Brittany, I said calmly, before we discuss the trip, there are some things we need to clear up. I placed the file on the coffee table and opened it to the first page. Her real name and background. Can you explain why you've been going by Brittany Thompson when your legal name is Bethany Torres? Her face went through a series of micro-expressions, surprise, calculation, then that sweet smile again. Oh, that, she said with a laugh. Brittany is just what I go by professionally. Bethany feels so formal, you know? And the professional name for what exactly, I asked. Because according to these court documents, you don't actually have any yoga certifications. You're not a licensed wellness coach. And you're currently being sued by 3 former clients for fraud. The smile finally faltered. Marcus was staring at her with a look I'd never seen before, like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. I can explain all of that, she said quickly. Those lawsuits are just misunderstandings. Some people have unrealistic expectations about wellness work. I flipped to the next page. What about this $15,000 loan that Marcus co-signed for? The one where you told him it was for $5,000? Marcus held up his copy of the paperwork. Brittany, is this your signature? She glanced at the documents, and for just a moment, her mask slipped completely. I saw the real person underneath. Cold, calculating, completely without remorse. Marcus, honey, I can explain everything, she said, her voice taking on a pleading tone. The loan documents were confusing. I didn't realize. Stop, Marcus said quietly. Just stop lying. Dad spoke up. Brittany, we also need to discuss the money you borrowed from us for your grandmother's surgery. The grandmother who died 3 years ago. That's when she finally dropped the act entirely. You know what? She said, standing up abruptly. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. You people are all crazy. She looked around the room with pure contempt. Marcus, your family is toxic. They're trying to turn you against me because they're jealous of what we have. What we have, Marcus repeated. You mean the $15,000 you stole from me? I didn't steal anything, she snapped. You gave me that money willingly. If you're too stupid to read what you're signing, that's not my fault. The mask was completely off now. This was the real Brittany, cruel, manipulative, and completely without conscience. And as for this pathetic family, she continued, her voice dripping with venom. I've been doing you all a favor by pretending to care about your boring little lives. Do you have any idea how exhausting it's been to act interested in your small-town problems and your mediocre achievements? She turned to my parents. Richard, Susan, you're both pathetic. Living in this cramped little house, driving your ancient cars, acting like a trip to France is some impossible dream. I've been to Europe 6 times, with men who actually have money. Mom's face went white. Dad looked like he wanted to throw her out physically. But Brittany wasn't done. She spun toward me with this ugly smile. And you, Chloe, you think you're so successful with your little marketing job and your basic apartment. You spent $27,000 trying to buy your family's love, And they were ready to give your spot to me without a second thought. How pathetic is that? The cruelty in her voice was breathtaking, but what struck me most was how wrong she was about everything. She'd completely misread our family, our relationships, even my apartment and career. I was planning to milk this family for at least another 6 months, she said, gathering her purse. But honestly, you're not worth the effort. Marcus, you're a loser who lives with his parents. Your daughter barely respects you. And your precious family who you thought loved you so much. They were ready to throw you under the bus for me? Marcus stood up slowly. Get out. Oh, I'm going, she said. But I'm keeping the engagement ring. Consider it compensation for the time I wasted on all of you. That ring was bought with money stolen from our parents, Marcus said. Prove it, she shot back. That's when I pulled out my phone. Actually, I can. I've been recording this entire conversation. Her face went pale. You can't do that. That's illegal. Actually, Oregon is a one-party consent state, I said calmly. I can legally record any conversation I'm part of. And this recording, combined with all the evidence we have, would be very interesting to the district attorney. For the first time since I'd known her, Brittany looked genuinely scared. What do you want? She asked. Simple, I said. You're going to return every penny you took from Marcus and my parents. You're going to disappear from our lives permanently. And if we ever see or hear from you again, this recording and all our evidence goes to the police. She stared at me for a long moment, clearly calculating whether she could fight this or if she was beaten. Fine, she said finally, but I'm not giving back the ring. Yes, you are, Marcus said, walking toward her. Because that ring represents money stolen from people I love, and I won't let you profit from that. She slipped the ring off her finger and threw it at him. It bounced off his chest and clattered to the floor. You're all going to regret this, she said. I could have made Marcus happy. I could have been good for this family. No, I said. You couldn't. Because you don't actually care about any of us. You never did. She walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. Enjoy your little family bonding, she said. But just remember, Marcus was ready to choose me over all of you. When things get tough again, when he screws up again, remember that. With that, she was gone. The silence in the room was deafening. Marcus sank back onto the couch, his head in his hands. She's right about one thing, he said quietly. I was ready to choose her over you all. I did choose her over you, Chloe. How do I live with that? I sat down next to him. You live with it by learning from it, by being better next time. Mom was crying quietly. Dad looked older than I'd ever seen him. We failed you, Dad said to me. We failed as parents, and we failed as a family. No, I said. We were manipulated by someone who's very good at manipulation. The important thing is that we figured it out before it was too late. Over the next few days, Marcus worked on getting the money back. The loan was more complicated. We had to work with the bank and file fraud reports, but eventually most of it was recovered. The $3,000 my parents had given her was gone for good, but they said they considered it a cheap lesson. Brittany kept her word about disappearing. Within a week, all her social media accounts were deleted, and no one heard from her again. I sometimes wonder if she moved on to another family in another state, but mostly I try not to think about her at all. As for the France trip, we made a decision as a family. We canceled the original bookings. It was too late to get full refunds, but we recovered about 60% of the cost. Instead, we planned a long weekend in the Oregon wine country. Not as glamorous as Paris, but exactly what we needed. We stayed at a small bed and breakfast in the Willamette Valley. We visited wineries, had long dinners where we actually talked to each other, and spent time just being a family without any outside influences. On the last night, we were sitting on the patio, watching the sunset over the vineyards. And Dad did something unprecedented. He apologized. Chloe, he said, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you a promise that this will never happen again. You've always been the responsible one, the successful one, the one who holds this family together, and we've taken you for granted. We taught you that love had to be earned, Mom added. But that's not true love. True love is given freely, and you've been giving it to us freely your whole life. Marcus looked at me with tears in his eyes. I don't know how to make this right. You don't have to make it right, I said. You just have to be better going forward. And slowly, gradually, we all started being better. Marcus moved out of our parents' house and got his own apartment near Emma's school. He started therapy to work on the issues that had made him vulnerable to Brittany's manipulation in the first place. He's dating again now, a nice teacher named Sarah who treats him as an equal partner, not a project to fix. My parents started treating me like an adult family member instead of just the successful daughter who could solve problems with money. We have dinner together once a month, and the conversations are real now, not just surface-level updates, but actual emotional connection. Emma, who's 10 now, is thriving. She spends weekends with Marcus, and she's told me multiple times how glad she is that the mean lady isn't around anymore. Kids see things adults miss sometimes. As for me, I learned something important about boundaries and self-worth. For years, I'd been trying to buy my family's love and respect with my success and generosity. But real love isn't transactional. Real family doesn't make you compete for your place at the table. I also learned to trust my instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. When someone seems too good to be true, they probably are. And when your gut tells you that someone is using your family, listen to it. The hardest lesson was this: sometimes protecting the people you love means being willing to be the bad guy. Sometimes it means being called selfish or jealous or controlling. Sometimes it means standing alone against everyone you care about because you can see something they can't. But here's what I want you to remember if you're going through something similar. You're not crazy for questioning someone who seems perfect. You're not paranoid for doing your research. You're not selfish for protecting your boundaries. Trust your gut. Do your homework. Stand your ground. And if your family tries to replace you with someone who's been around for 6 months, that says something about them, not about you. About 6 months after everything went down, I got a message on LinkedIn from a woman in Denver. She'd found my name through Ashley, who is now helping other victims of Brittany's scams connect with each other. "I think your brother's ex-fiancée is dating my cousin," the message said. "She's going by Bethany Martinez now, and she's got him convinced that his family doesn't support their relationship. Can we talk?" I spent an hour on the phone with her, sharing everything I'd learned about Brittany's patterns and tactics. 2 weeks later, she sent me an update. Her cousin had broken up with Brittany after finding evidence of her lies. That's when I realized something important. This wasn't just about my family. Brittany was still out there, still targeting vulnerable people, still leaving destruction in her wake. So I made a decision. I created a private Facebook group for Brittany's victims and their families. It started with just Ashley and me, but it's grown to over 40 people now. We share information, warn each other about her latest identities and locations, and provide support for the families she's damaged. She's operated under at least 7 different names in the past 3 years. She's been engaged 6 more times that we know of. She's stolen over $200,000 from various victims. But here's the thing, she's getting sloppy. The more people who know her patterns, the harder it becomes for her to operate. Twice now, we've been able to warn potential victims before she could do serious damage. Last month, we got word that she'd been arrested in Arizona on multiple fraud charges. Finally, someone pressed criminal charges that stuck. She's looking at 2 to 5 years in prison. I probably won't attend the trial, but I'll be watching from a distance. Not because I need closure, I found that when my family chose to believe me over her, but because I want her to know that her victims aren't silent anymore. If you're watching this and something about your family situation feels off, if someone new has come into your life and things just don't add up, please trust yourself. Do the research. Ask the hard questions. Protect the people you love, even if they don't want to be protected. And if you're in a family where you constantly have to prove your worth, where love feels conditional, where outsiders are valued more than you are, that's not normal. That's not healthy. You deserve better. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to play along with dysfunction. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is forcing them to see the truth, even when it's painful. 3 years later, my relationship with my family isn't perfect, but it's real. We still have our issues, but we face them honestly now. We still disagree sometimes, but we don't try to replace each other anymore. And that France trip? We finally took it last year for my parents' 43rd anniversary. All of us, Mom, Dad, Marcus, Emma, and me. It was everything I dreamed it would be 3 years earlier, but better because we were actually family by then, not just people related by blood. The best part wasn't the Eiffel Tower or the luxury hotels or the Michelin-starred dinners. The best part was sitting in a cafe in Provence, watching Emma practice her French with the waiter while Marcus and Dad argued good-naturedly about the wine list, and realizing that this messy, imperfect, real family was worth fighting for. So that's my story. $27,000, 8 months of planning, and one epic family meltdown that taught us all what really matters. Have you ever had to fight for your place in your own family? Have you ever had to be the one to expose an uncomfortable truth that everyone else wanted to ignore? Drop your stories in the comments. I read every single one, and I promise you're not alone in this. And hey, if this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. I've got more family drama stories that'll make your relatives look like saints. Trust me, we're just getting started. Thanks for listening, guys. See you next week.